Hello BookTube, this is Weekly Reads. If everything had gone to plan, I would only be talking about my reread of Alice in Borderland by Haro. This reread is part of a year-long project I've undertaken in which I reread a completed manga series that I have collected. My April pick was Alice in Borderland, which is a survival series about a young man named Tatsu who is nearing adulthood and he doesn't know what to make of his life, where he's going. And one night, he and his friends are walking to Shibuya, and they all make the wish that they wish they were somewhere else, anywhere else but there. And at that point, a fireworks display begins to go off, culminating in a massive firework that envelops Tatsu and his friends in light and transports them to a ruined, abandoned Tokyo. So Tatsu and his friends explore this abandoned Tokyo, and towards evening, they find a temple with electricity that has been set out for a festival. So Tatsu and his friends go into the festival, eat a little bit, and relax when they meet a young woman. Shortly thereafter, the exits of the temple are blocked off by a laser fence, and Tatsu and his friends have to play their first death game in Borderland. Tatsu and his friends are immigrants to this strange world called Borderland. In order to survive, they must play these death games based on the 4 suites of playing cards, with the number indicating difficulty, and with spades being physical games, diamonds being intellectual games, clubs being a mix of physical and intellectual, and hearts being psychological. Tatsu and his friends, and basically you get whatever the difficulty was, is how many days you get on your visa. If your visa runs out without you playing any games, you get a laser to the head and you are deported. So Tatsu and his friends survive this first game and begin to try to figure out what's going on in between playing games and trying not to get killed. And Tatsu just goes through an emotional ringer. I started reading Alice in Borderland in late 2023 and continued into 2024 when the final volumes of the English translation omnibus edition. So Alice in Borderland lasted for 18 volumes, which has been collected into 9 two-volume omnibus editions for the English release. And while I was initially reading the series, I quite liked it. But I don't know if I'm suffering a burnout, because a large number of what I've read so far this year has been manga. So I don't know if it's just a general burnout or Alice in Borderland me not necessarily hold up to a reread, particularly one that is a year off from a previous reread. I don't quite know. But I just really wasn't feeling Alice in Borderland, and so I stopped at the second omnibus. So I got 4 volumes in, but I'm counting them as 2. So I do want to show you some images, because one thing I really like about this series is the artwork. particularly the cityscapes. They are really, really good. And the series does get more realistic in its artwork over time. There. So yeah. So that said, that does not mean that Alice in Borderland was the only manga I read this week. I did read 2 of the new manga releases of the series that I'm actively collecting, which came out last week. So I started with DanDaDan Volume 12 by Yukinobu Tatsu. This is a series about 2 teenagers, Momo and Ken. Momo believes in the supernatural. Her grandmother is a psychic. And Ken believes in the extraterrestrial. Momo doesn't believe in the extraterrestrial, and Ken does not believe in the supernatural. So at the beginning of the series, they make a bet. Momo will go to a place that is reputedly visited by extraterrestrials, and Ken will go to a place that is reputedly haunted. And they find out that in actual fact, in this world, the supernatural and the extraterrestrial both exist. And they are both quite insane. And this encounter changes both Momo and Ken. Momo's latent psychic abilities are awakened after an encounter with the really despicable alien species, the Serpoans. And Ken develops, initially he's possessed by a very perverted ghost called Turbo Granny. And later, once she's been exorcised from his body, he maintains her super speed at the cost of his testicles. And so Momo and Ken and their other friends who sort of join them, who have also have encountered the supernatural or the extraterrestrial or are extraterrestrial, sort of come together around Momo and Ken, and who goes by the nickname Okuran, to sort of defend the world from both supernatural and extraterrestrial threats. This volume is largely devoted to battle. An alien species called the Space Globalists have invaded Earth. In the first encounter between these aliens and Team Momo Okuran, Team Momo Okuran had been defeated quite handedly. And so in the previous volume, many of the members trained over the course of a few days to prepare for the next wave of the invasion. While Okuran ends up going on an astral journey to seek the help of Saika and Turbo Granny. And so Saika can't help because she has other things to deal with. So Ken returns to his body. Meanwhile, Momo and the others have gone to confront the Space Globalists, and much of this volume is devoted to that battle. So I rather enjoyed it, but I wasn't... Like, it didn't really give me the... it didn't quite have the effect I had hoped for. So I think with these 2 volumes, this one and the next one I'm going to talk about, is where I really thought that I am probably burning out on manga for the moment. So the other volume I read was volume 16 of Four Knights of the Apocalypse by Nakaba Suzuki. This is a sequel series to The Seven Deadly Sins. Both series take place in a world inspired by the Arthurian mythos. In Four Knights of the Apocalypse, 4 superpowered teenagers have been foretold to bring about the downfall of a corrupted King Arthur and his alternate reality Camelot. In volume 15, a major change to the series happened. That led to a 2-year time skip. 2 years after the adventure to the demon world, some of the Four Knights of the Apocalypse and their allies have breached Camelot and are trying to bring people who have gone to Camelot back to the real world, while other members of the Seven Deadly Sins are defending Britannia against attacks from Camelot. 2 of the sort of companions of the Four Knights of the Apocalypse, Anne and Donnie, are working to help people who become dissatisfied with Camelot to defect back to Britannia. Meanwhile, Nascens has gone into the fairy realm to try to work on a cure for Percival. And towards the end of this volume, revelations about Nascens begins to be revealed, which is the highlight of this volume. I really like this volume, but it wasn't what I had hoped it would be. Like I just wasn't feeling it. So yeah. So I think I'm going to take a bit of a break from manga, probably for a few weeks, and see if maybe that will help some. Or perhaps this is the sign of a case change. I don't know. But I'm definitely feeling a stronger pull towards a history and classics, canonical, modern, and contemporary fiction, poetry, and drama. Definitely more so to history, because I do have a growing pile of history books that's waiting for one final book or 2. Well, it should be 1, 2 before I do a history haul. And I'm also beginning work on a classics nether haul as well. But anyway, moving on to poetry. So the rest of my reading for this week was poetry. I initially wanted to focus on settling things with Robinson Jeffers, with the selected poetry of Robinson Jeffers. And I still haven't figured out the best way to approach this collection. Robinson Jeffers has he writes both lyric poetry as well as narrative epic poetry, and I haven't quite found a way to balance that, how to work that. Also, the first of the epic poems in this collection is Tamar, which, while the poetry itself is beautiful, the story doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I still need to figure out how to approach this book. much more successful was 8 slim volumes of poetry that I have read over the last 2 weeks. So, 2 weeks ago, I had hoped to read 15 volumes of Twin Star Exorcists. And that didn't quite work out, and I only read 9 volumes. And on that Friday, I reread Unusually Grand Ideas by James Davis May. And I really enjoyed it. It was something I needed. Even though this collection, many of the poems are very psychologically hurting. But I needed it. And subsequently, I reread She Heads into the Wilderness by Anne-Marie Macari, which is probably my favorite collection of hers. It's one that I go to quite frequently. Her work is very beautiful, particularly her nature poetry. And I reread for the umpteenth time Voluntary Servitude by Mark Wunderlich, which is, I think this is my favorite collection of his. And it deals with growing up. Many of the poems deal with his childhood. And I quite enjoyed it, as I always do. I also reread Larvae of the Near Stars by Catherine W. Carter, my favorite collection of hers. Which wonderful. One Summer Evening at the Falls by Peter Campion. This is his most recent collection. One that I have struggled with in the past, but I still like it. The last time I read this, I kind of got over the hump of this collection, and this reread was an equal enjoyment. Native Guard by Natasha Trethewey. Quite enjoyed it. The View from Saturn by Alice Friman. Really enjoyed this as well. I really liked a lot of the poems, particularly The Joker. And Hosts and Guests by Nate Klug, which is really great collection. And I really enjoyed this reread as well. So my plan for this coming reading week is to focus on history. Now, I do have 2 works of history that I've been planning on reading for this month. I would go get them, but that would involve a bit of maneuvering. But I also have that pile of history books that I have hauled. And I'm thinking about maybe reading 1 or 2 of them. So I will, over this evening and very early tomorrow morning, decide what I want to read. And I will, of course, report back next week with weekly reads, which, if things go well, I might very well title it History's Back. We shall see. Anyway, BookTube, that's it for this week. So until I see you next week, thank you. Have a great rest of your evening and weekend, and see you Monday.